Welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. This is Kyle Hunter.
And I'm Kiev O'Neill.
Welcome back for another show, guys. Week 3 of college football, week 2 of the NFL. Hope you guys have had a great week. We're going to talk about some big games this weekend. I think we have another good slate. I think Kiev and I both coming off a great weekend of betting from last week. So always excited by that. Guys, check out BetUS. You can sign up for BetUS. Use the code BetterOdds, get a 100% sign up bonus. You can also check out my BetUS college football show with Gary Seegers and Parker Fleming. Also, always check out everything that's going on over the Odds Breakers. Kiev has a lot of great writers. I know a lot of those guys have been pretty hot here of late too, right, Kiev?
Yeah, and we're hoping one pops on. Might be a little surprise for this, Kyle. And don't sell yourself short last week. You went 8-0 in college football, all right, buddy? That's pretty good.
Neat.
And I'm very impressed by how quickly you picked it up. Not everyone can say that. Had a great week myself, 9-4 against the spread totals, hit a couple small money line sprinkles. So it was a fantastic weekend for sure in college.
Nice. Yeah, it was a great weekend, and we're looking forward to trying to have another really good weekend here. So let's get right into the games here, Kiev. Let's talk briefly about UCF and Louisville here tonight. I'll start with this one. There's actually a free play from myself up on the oddsbreakers.com on this game. So if you want my full thoughts on this game, you can check that out over there as well. I think that Louisville is just a team that will likely disappoint for the course of this season. To me, Louisville is a team that Cunningham is not surrounded by much at this point. He had Atwell, Hawkins, guys like that around him. We know Louisville's defense isn't very good. So now Louisville, without those skill position talent around Cunningham, they don't have a great offensive line. To me, this is a Louisville team that is not going to be able to win those high-scoring games like they've been able to in the past. Dylan Gabriel, very good player. I think UCF's defense is better than some people think because, look, UCF had a ton of opt-outs last year. So I don't think this UCF team last year is what we should expect to see this year. So Kiev, I'm liking UCF here in this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, UCF was really impressed me when they played Boise State. And because it wasn't the score that impressed me, it's the fact that they doubled them in yards. I mean, that was huge, and Boise State's a pretty dang good team if you've watched their last game. Louisville definitely took their season win total under, and it's looking pretty good so far. Off to a good start. Not a big believer in Satterfield. I don't know what happened to him. I guess he was very wishy-washy about leaving, and now the confidence is kind of showing within the team that they lost confidence in him. And yeah, Malik Cunningham, everyone remembers that 12-7 game against Notre Dame, like they kind of hung in there. Well, I mean, that was their biggest spot, and that's the chance they had, and they still lost that game last year. This team got worse last year while UCF got better. And, it's at about a 7.5 right now, Kyle. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Louisville defense is a little better than you think. And I think UCF's defense is a lot better. So I'm going to lean to the under on this one. It looks like some sharper sides are on the under at 67. But everyone thinks UCF is so high flying, you might even get a better number later tonight.
Yeah, I actually took UCF when it was -6.5. So certainly a difference in the line there. But yeah, if I had to take a total here, I would take the under as well. You have to hold your nose a little bit if you take a UCF under because of how fast they play. But I don't think they'll play as fast with Miles on as they did in the past. So I would lean to the under as well. Let's go on to the Saturday games here, Kiev, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. I'm going to let you start on this one because I think you probably have a stronger opinion than me on this game.
Well, I mean, they're calling it the game of the century, and the way the Nebraska's played over the last 20 years doesn't really warrant such an ornate title, does it? Yeah. But I will say that Nebraska has some injuries right now that word on the street from the people that I'm hearing close to the program is saying that there's a good chance some of those guys are coming back, like tight end Austin Allen, receivers Martin and Manning. So if two of those come back, I definitely feel a little bit better for them. So they had that awful game against Illinois, and I mean, they did outgain Illinois. It was just like a typical Scott Frost blowing it, And in my opinion, they're better than that. And then when they played Buffalo, Buffalo's a decent MAC team. You know, they see, I know Leopold left, but they still have some pretty good players there, and they recruit well in the Buffalo area, which is a big blue collar city. A lot of talent in that city. Now, of course, the best people are going to leave, but I was somewhat impressed about the way they played that game. I was. And here's what you really have to look at here. The matchup's going to be, well, the secondary really. Can Nebraska stop their receivers? You know, that's important. And I think Nebraska's defensive line is pretty beefy, and you can't say that Oklahoma's is not. So I think the trenches is actually pretty close. You know, the big thing for me is who who's this game going to impact more? Who's it more important for? Oklahoma gets this win. It's not going to move anything for them. Nebraska, on the other hand, this game can change Scott Frost's whole reputation at Nebraska this year. It is so much more important for Nebraska to play their best game possible. You know, so two things: can the cornerbacks hold Marvin Mims and Mario Williams, Oklahoma's wide receivers? Who knows? Spencer Rattler is a good quarterback, but still a little bit green. You know, you got to give the experience factor at quarterback here to Nebraska, right? And 22 is a big spread. My number is 15 and a half, believe it or not. Now, that is if they're healthy. I'm going to keep digging a little bit, but this could be a better game than this spread tells you, is all I have to say. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
Yeah, 69% of the bets on Oklahoma here and 96% of the money. So basically nobody betting on Nebraska. If you're taking Nebraska, this is a contrarian side for sure, which doesn't really surprise me. You know, it's hard to bet Nebraska now. We've seen them in a lot of these big games not really show up. I worry about betting on Adrian Martinez. He's kind of just a turnover machine. I think this is too big of a line for me to take Oklahoma. I can't lay that many points. My line on this game is 20. So I'm a little bit closer to what the line is here. I don't want to bet Nebraska. Nebraska's a team that I've pretty much decided that, you know, I want to have a big edge if I bet Nebraska. So I'm going to pass on betting Nebraska in this game. I kind of looked at the total a little bit to try to see if I had any edge. This is extremely close to what I put the total at as well. I made the total 63. So we see a lot of 62, 62 and a halfs right now. I think Martinez and Nebraska could move the ball here. Nebraska has kind of had issues in the past in the red zone, turning it over. It wouldn't surprise me if they would do that again. Alex Grinch has done a really good job with this Oklahoma defense. I think that's where Oklahoma has gotten so much better from a few years ago. They don't have to win a shootout every single game. As a Buckeyes fan, I hate that they let him get away, and now the Buckeyes defense is crap. And, you know, that certainly stinks that Grinch is doing such a good job there. Oklahoma just 5.9 yards per play against Tulane. That really surprised me when I was looking that up because they did score a lot of points, but I think you could kind of say that Oklahoma assumed they had that game in the second half, got a little bit conservative. 5.9 yards per play, not very good, even to have as many points as they had. So I think they kind of sat on that game. I do think Oklahoma is a team that's capable of winning it all this year. So I think their upside is very high. I know Alabama looks like they're kind of in a class by themselves right now, but I think Oklahoma at least has a shot. I'm going to stay away from this game, Kiev, and sounds like you haven't made a bet yet either, but you're leaning toward Nebraska, right?
I'm leaning toward Nebraska, and I still, even from last week, have the perception that the Big 12 is overrated a little bit. So, and that's part of the reason. But it's all about what this game means to these programs here. It doesn't mean anything to Oklahoma, and it means the world to Nebraska. So keep that in mind. These kids are going to come in with a fire up their ass.
That's fair. That's fair. So let's head into Purdue and Notre Dame here for this weekend. So I'll start with this one, Kiev. How good are either of these teams? I think there are question marks on both sides. Purdue has 2 wins. They were outgained by Oregon State, and then they trounced UConn, but everybody should trounce UConn, so we don't really know too much yet. Notre Dame held on against Florida State, then needed a late score to squeak out a win against Toledo. Look, Toledo's a good MAC team, but Notre Dame shouldn't be just edging out MAC teams. So that wasn't a very good look for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's Jack Cohn has been sacked 10 times this year. Now, I looked at this quite a bit because the 10 really stood out to me. it would be easy to say the offensive line sucks here, but PFF grades Notre Dame as the 17th best pass blocking grade so far in the nation this year. What's that mean? It means that Cohn's holding the ball way too long. He's trying to hold on and make something happen. I think Cohn's okay. I don't think he's a great quarterback, and Kiev obviously has more thoughts on him being a former Badger. But I'll say that I think Notre Dame only averaging 2.66 yards per carry is even more concerning to me because I thought Notre Dame was going to be good at running the football. I thought that would be their strength. They certainly have talent in the backfield. Purdue's run D is unlikely to be able to stop them. I think Purdue's defense is pretty weak. Having said that, I think Purdue's offense is good enough to score points here on Notre Dame. Plummer has turned into a solid player at quarterback. David Bell, a tremendous wide receiver. I think Purdue can score points here. Notre Dame really missing Clark Lee, their defensive coordinator from last year. Notre Dame has allowed 10 plays of 20 yards or more already in 2 games. That's a lot of big plays. And, this is a spot where, to me, Notre Dame, they look like they're quite a bit down from last year. Purdue, we don't know how much better they are than last year. They weren't very good last year. The only side I could take, Kiev, I'm kind of looking at the odds here as we go. I saw 7.5, 7 last. Okay, so mainly 7, some 7.5. So this is one of those games where you shop around. You can get a 7 if you like Notre Dame, 7.5 if you like Purdue. I lean toward Purdue on the side here, thinking this could be a close game. My stronger lean here, I believe, is the over. I think both teams can score in this game. I don't think the pace will be really quick, but I think there'll be enough explosive plays from both teams that we see quite a bit of scoring on the scoreboard here from each team. So I like the over. I haven't played it yet, but I do think I'll at least play it for something. Kiev, what are your thoughts on this game?
No, it's a great breakdown that you had. Great points that you made. Purdue's defense hasn't proven anything yet. They were outgained a little bit, but they did win that game. Sometimes it's just teams are pretty good in the red zone and tighten up a little bit. Now, this is an interesting game because Notre Dame really had a bad week last week, even though they won the game, because what happened. Their big game with Florida State didn't age so well, and they lost to an FCS team in Jacksonville State. That's pretty disgusting, I would think, to Florida State fans. Obviously they went to overtime. Now, your points on Jack Cohn. Jack Cohn is a good quarterback. He is not a great quarterback. He is a good quarterback, and he can kind of manage the game well. And he actually had that great drive against Toledo at the end. He did benefit for some pass interference calls, but that was real. I mean, there was real pass interference on those. They were like Toledo was hugging him, and they got really, really fired up, and Jack Cohn won the game. And Jack Cohn can do that. But here's the thing: how many more of these games can Notre Dame eke out here like this? This had to take a lot out of them here. Purdue had a cakewalk with UConn. Can't do anything with those stats. As a matter of fact, you probably have to throw away their stats for another 2 or 3 games if you're going to start going by statistics later this year, like we always like to do. But Jack Plummer does look pretty good so far to me this year. The look-ahead line was Purdue dogs by 11.5. So Notre Dame was favored by about 11.5, and that went down significantly. But I think the adjustment was warranted. The big issue for Notre Dame that you can't miss is that they are sandwiched here between that emotional win against Toledo and Florida State into that Wisconsin game in Soldier Field in Chicago. I mean, you have to think that they're kind of thinking to that now. People say, is this the Battle of Indiana? Maybe to Purdue it is, but not to Notre Dame. They never really get to compete with Purdue for the Battle of Indiana. They're not like going to lose recruits to Purdue, even if they lose this game. This game means a lot more to Purdue in this situation, and they feel like they're the ones that are getting slighted here. Jeff Brown, sneaky coach, man. He gets into some games and he makes some pretty good decisions ever since Western Kentucky. I mean, I've been a Jeff Brown fan myself. I think this number should be 6. I'm serious. I think this number should be 6. I think Purdue is in a great situation to pull the upset over a team that could be looking ahead. Notre Dame's offensive line grade's good, but they didn't look good to me. And what was Florida State? I think what we're finding out is Notre Dame is a good team, not a great team. Florida State is not yet an average team. I don't care what people think. And Purdue is a sneaky good team that's going to cover a 7.5-point hook. I'm going to give out my free play, Purdue plus 7.5, and definitely season that money line.
Yeah, I was just going to say myself too. I think if you like Purdue here, you do want to put something on the money line here because you get a nice money line price. Notre Dame hasn't proven that they're capable of pulling away from any decent team. They let Florida State back in the game, and like you said, I think Florida State's not very good at all. Toledo, a pretty good team, but Notre Dame can't be in that spot against Toledo. So we don't know how good Purdue is, but we think that Purdue's at least capable, and they have a very good head coach. Brom's done good as an underdog in the past. Here we have him in the underdog role against a team that's not that good in Notre Dame. I think plus 7.5 is a pretty decent look, and I think on the money line is also a pretty good look here. So,
and Kyle, think about this: will there be some Purdue fans there? It's not far, and if I'm a Notre Dame season ticket holder, I'm selling this ticket to pay the $500, $600 ticket to go to Soldier Field, right? This is the team I'm selling. So you have to think about that as well. I just want to make a quick comment about this week I'm noticing in general in college football, Kyle. There's some contrarian stuff going on. Lots of dogs are being bought because lots of dogs hit last week. If you remember Stanford, if you remember Iowa, right? Lots of dogs showed up last week. So you're getting a lot of buying on these dogs, and I'm almost thinking about going the other way and actually going with some favorites this week. I mean, my numbers are not matching up in some of these big games, and this is just a broad statement that a lot of the money's coming in on overly contrarian plays. I think people are just thinking that, oh, grab the dog. I'm not buying that right now, so I'm going to keep that in mind when I do my final handicaps coming into Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and I'm just trying to look as we're talking here to see how the favorites and dogs have done for the course of the season. The underdog is 48-44 with 3 pushes so far this year. There are a lot of high-profile underdogs cashing in last week, which and those were at the end of the day last week. So
Oregon, right? Oregon.
Oh, thanks, Kid. I figured you're gonna bring up the Purdue game from a few years ago, but you brought up Oregon and said no. I mean, Ohio State deserved to lose that game, so I don't feel too terrible about that.
But it was a
one.
big dog. It was a big dog going by the.
Sure, yeah, and I mean Stanford just blowing out USC. I mean, Kiev, you were on Stanford in that game. So
yeah, and I wish I made it a premium play, so I can't count it, but I did give it out as a free one, and that money line was plus 700. So I had a really
plus
good
700.
Yeah.
Follow Kiev on Twitter because he does give out some of those free plays as well. Kiev, I believe we are joined here by Chris Farley at Farley Bets.
Look at this! Big surprise, Chris. Now, how'd you break into this stream, Chris?
Oh my God! I found it somewhere out there in the ozones of the internet.
Oh, I love this shirt though, man.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, you like this flag there, kid? I don't know where.
Nice. Yeah, you're looking good. We're actually almost done here with college. We Kyle and I just have one more game. I know that you want to talk a little NFL, so Kyle, want to quick get into the Toledo?
Yeah, Toledo here, Colorado State and Toledo. Chris, if you want to add anything on this, you can, or if you just want to wait for NFL, either way is fine with me. I'll start on this one, Kiev. Toledo, 79% of the bets are on Toledo here, about 50% of the money. So this one's split more evenly. I think people are betting against Toledo here who think this is a bad spot for them coming off that game against Notre Dame. I think that's understandable. I have watched Colorado State enough to know that I don't want to bet on them at this point. I question their coaching staff. I don't think they've done a very good job. You can't lose the games that they've been losing here at the beginning of this season and be very excited to bet them. You just sit back and wait. Having said that, laying the points with Toledo here would be the way I'd have to do it. I think that Toledo is a quality team, and they go up against a Mountain West opponent that's a bigger name than them. So you would think they'd still get up for a game like this. So I'm going to lean towards Toledo. Lean the over as well. I think that Colorado State tries to play fast. They're not very good, but they still try to play fast. Toledo, a good offense that I think can be efficient. So I'm going to lean over and Toledo in this one. Kiev, what do you think?
Definitely not a great start for Coach Adazio over at the Rams there in Colorado State. Now they lost to Vanderbilt. And they were up 14-7, But they lost that game against South Dakota State as well. But I'm not going to punish them for that because South Dakota State is the best FCS team out there, at least according to a lot of people's rankings. Sagarin's got them at 68 out of all college football. So the Jackrabbits deserve to be a highly ranked team, and I'm not going to hold that too much against. But at the same time, this is still a rebuilding program. He comes in 2020. He's got to start rebuilding from the get-go, kind of from the ground up. And we all know that 2020 was a difficult COVID year, so you can't take a heck of a lot of improvement from that. Now, at the same time, I think Toledo's the best program in school in the MAC right now, right? I mean, I don't want to say that because I had a little bit of money on Western Michigan to win, but truth is, there's no value on Toledo when I did that podcast, and Toledo's now looking what they should be, and so that even shows the Notre Dame it's not quite that bad of a loss, or a fact that they only won by 2. I have Toledo minus 17. But here's my problem. It was still a heart-wrenching loss for them when they could have beaten Notre Dame, right? I mean, if they would have beaten Notre Dame, holy cow, all hell would have broke loose. But Notre Dame, in that last minute, comes back and beats Toledo. So I might play Toledo in my contest because I have to do a contest for William Hill. I have to have 8 picks against the spread. I might do that, but I'm not quite ready to bet them after that. Now, this thing is creeping down, like you said. I think it's 14 now. The contest play, unfortunately, is 14.5, so the market is going contrarian. I don't see how you can bet a fast-paced team, 2 fast-paced teams, because the Toledo ranked 11th in plays per game last year. That just shows more points to the favorite here when the favorite's a better team. So there's a chance I might bet Toledo, but right now I'm going to give it a lean, Kyle.
Yeah, I think at these odds, you can get 13.5 on Toledo several spots. So I lean Toledo pretty strongly at 13.5. I don't know that I'll end up betting it because of the situation. I think there might be better games to bet here. I also lean the over. Chris, do you want to add anything to this, or you want to switch over to NFL?
Yeah, I have nothing to say about this one, but I could add something about Notre Dame.
Okay, let's hear it.
Go back on that one a little bit because I heard you guys talking about it. I don't know. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I am a Notre Dame fan, which is a struggle. More of a Giants fan, more of a pro football guy. But yeah, just the glaring thing that I've noticed from Notre Dame this year is their offensive line just isn't as dominant as we've seen in the past. And the ATS woes continue. But I totally agree with what Kiev was saying. I think this is a bigger game for Purdue. And if this remains at 7 or gets, I don't see it going up from there. But I'm pretty bullish on Purdue this week. I mean, we're seeing it time and time again. And Notre Dame's kind of figuring themselves out still. And I think Purdue is taking care of business the way that they should have. So the only side that I can look at in this one is Purdue. And it's it's an ongoing struggle with the teams that I cheer for, but it's bound to be a close game once again. I can't see the Irish blowing out the Boilermakers, even though it's at home.
All right.
Yeah, Chris, I think all of us kind of line up then on that one. We all lean Purdue. The money line price, we were talking, it's not a terrible bet here. If you bet Purdue to take the money line, you can get some plus 240, plus 245. I think that's a pretty fair price there on Purdue. Obviously, Notre Dame more than likely to win based on the odds, but you give me plus 240, plus 245, I've got to sprinkle it on the money line as well, like Kiev would say. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, let's switch over to the NFL now, guys. Let's start out. Which game do we want to start out with here, Kiev? Raiders, Steelers?
Well, you know what? Why not? Let's go right to Raiders, Steelers here. So Steelers is now a -6 juice to 120. I'm seeing a lot of 6.5s. Total is 47. This move partially because of the injury information that came out on the Raiders. It's not looking good. It's Raiders guard Denzel Good had some not so good news with his torn ACL, and Denzel McCoy is now out for the season. Defensive tackle to stop Najee Harris. That's not good. And the Steelers front 5 is really good. So if they're missing a guard there and they're missing the defensive tackle on the other side of the coin, that's bad. This game's weird in the way that, they're kind of letdown spots for both. The Raiders had no business beating the Ravens the way they did. And, Buffalo outgained Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's offense did not look good at all to me. Their defense looked super fierce. But here's the thing with this. The Raiders have some weapons on offense, but I just think that Carr's not going to have time to throw the ball, man. TJ Watt is just balling right now, and he's showing everybody he's worth every penny of that $100 million that he got paid, man. I'll be honest. I took it at 5.5. I'm not going to give it out as a play because you can at 5.5, but I'll definitely give you a lean at the 6.
Okay, so my thoughts on this game, could you get a worse spot for the Raiders? I mean, it's not a great spot for the Steelers, but I think it's an even worse spot for the Raiders. What a crazy game. That's one of the wildest finishes. Looks like they've won, then they haven't won, the interception, the Ravens have a chance, then the Raiders win again. I mean, this was just a wild finish, one of the best ones I've seen in recent memory. Steelers with a nice win at Buffalo. I think they were at least somewhat fortunate, like Kiev said. 4.6 yards per play on offense. So their offense didn't show me anything there. I think the Steelers' offensive line is still a question mark, and their offense in general, the quarterback play, not very good at this point. The Steelers' defense is legit. I don't think anybody's going to argue that against that. I do think the Steelers' defense can bother Carr a lot in this game. And Carr is such an inconsistent quarterback. He can look very good. He can look really bad. Sometimes it seems like there's no in-between for a guy like him. The spot alone, I have to lean Steelers. I couldn't take the Raiders. Guys, I'm wondering what you think about this total, too. We'll see what Chris has to think on both here. But the total, I lean to the under. I don't like taking Raiders unders that much because I see the Raiders as kind of an over team, but I see the Steelers as an under team. I don't think the Raiders can score that much in a game like this. So the question is, how much are the Steelers going to score? And I guess I don't know that I trust the Steelers offense that much. That's what has me worried about laying 6 points in a game like this. Like Kiev said, you could get 5.5 earlier. Now you're basically laying 6.5 most of places. So, Chris, what are your thoughts here? You have any thoughts on the side or total for this game?
I agree with everything you guys have said so far, for sure. I mean, can't get a worse spot for the Raiders. If you remember from last year in 2020, after they had that big win over the Chiefs in Kansas City, what happened the next week? They faced the Bucs at home, got blown out 45-20. This feels a lot like that almost, but possibly even worse, right? Because they're traveling across the country to Pittsburgh, really tough place to play. I'm hearing a lot of sentiment out there about how the Steelers, kind of didn't deserve to win that game. I see where people are coming from with that, but I absolutely think that their defense, deserves all the credit. I mean, if you remember, the Bills started off with that kickoff return going all the way down to like the 30-yard line of the Steelers, and the Steelers held them to a field goal. I mean, 13 points after that for the rest of the game to Josh Allen and that Bills offense. The Raiders can put up some points, but are they better than the Bills offense? And, they're going across the country again in an early spot. I mean, I liked 5.5 a lot more, but even at 6, I just have to think that this is just, it's not a great spot for the Steelers either after that big win, but at least they're at home. And I liked what I saw from the Steelers offense in the second half, at least. And Big Ben started cold as hell, but made some good passes, and they made some good things happen towards the end of that game to seal the game with that final field goal with about 3 minutes left. So they answered the call when they had to. And I see this just being a total mismatch. The Raiders take on the personality of John Gruden, which is, emotionally volatile, so they're so up and down and so clumsy, but they're passionate, but they're, I just, see a buttoned up Steelers team who can definitely have some volatility too, but I think we can count on their defense. And I totally agree. I don't see Derek Carr having even close to the same game that he had on Monday night. This is going to be a free play right up for me at the odds breakers as well. I'm going to have to change it to 6 now, but I'm still going to take that. Although I did, grab the -5.5 earlier this week, which was nice. Let's get into that key number.
Nice. Yeah. I will add one thing. I was just kind of looking at the referee assignments for this weekend. Jerome Boger's crew is the one that's on this game. And I think most people know Jerome Boger's crew is the one that calls pass interference on nearly everything. He's had a ton of overs, 114 overs and 78 unders in that crew's game. So 60% of them have gone over. I probably won't want to play the under in this game based on that, just because of I've seen it so many times.
We should just bet based on his crew, Kyle.
Yeah,
I'm
I
serious.
don't know.
I'm
I don't
actually
know if
serious.
I can. I was gonna say I didn't know if you were serious or joking. I mean, I hate to because, but I mean, what's that? That's almost 200 games.
Yeah,
We've seen what
PI
he's
in the
done.
NFL has really, really put a lot
It
of energy
changes.
in the game, and
It
so I agree. But and that's just even bigger point to stay away from the total. I definitely
Yeah,
lean to the under though. I
yeah.
did in this situation, but right now it's a stay away. Maybe after this week we'll start fading that the unders in that group.
Yeah, yeah, maybe so. We'll see. Let's go Chiefs Ravens, guys. Huge game here. This one is wild. I don't really have too much insight because the odds here are so much different than what I thought they would have been, just because the Ravens look so bad in the second half there. Last week, I think the look ahead line here might have been like pick 'em or something like that. And now we have Chiefs by 3.5 or 4. I would have liked to take the Chiefs at less than 3 points in a game like this. I trust the Chiefs a lot more than I trust the Ravens. At this price, it's hard to lay 3.5 or 4 when you think you should have gotten a lot better price. The total here sitting 54.5. I could only bet the over if I was betting the total in this game. Chris, let's start with you. What do you think about this game?
It's still a 3.5, right?
Three and a half, some fours,
Yeah.
either one.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go against a lot of my principles here with this one. I think, you love to take a home dog with the hook. But I'm really concerned about the Ravens offense and just some of the limitations that I saw in that game. I mean, not a lot of downfield passing, right? We already know that they don't have a lot of tall, deep threats. So it feels like even more being put on the shoulders of Lamar. And we saw he kind of threw some errant passes at the end, right? It was sort of a little bit more out of control. Now the Chiefs defense, nothing to be that intimidated by, but they show up when they need to. And I'm concerned that the Chiefs are going to be able to pass, and get ahead in this game, and that the Ravens are not going to be able to catch up. They passed all over the Browns, right? One of the best defenses in the NFL. Of course, they're at home. It's week 1, and Andy Reid had months to prep for that game. So this is a little bit different of a turnaround here. I really want to go with the Ravens in this spot at home opener. Baltimore is going to be rocking. All my friends around here are excited about that game. And there's all kinds of beer deals everywhere for it and everything. Baltimore is going to be rocking, but I think it's going to be another letdown. I'm leaning towards the Chiefs even at 3.5. I hate that, but I just think the setup. I mean, we just saw another cornerback went down for Baltimore, Chris Westreese. They had to sign Kevin Seymour. I mean, that secondary is really hurting right now. A hurting secondary against the Chiefs and Mahomes, who only got sacked, twice against that front seven of the Browns on Sunday. So they really weren't that limited as soon as they had to turn it up. I think the Chiefs are going to come, and I think Baltimore is going to be a little disappointed. Right now, I'm still going to lean at the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Max commented about the Chiefs covering. Yeah, and that's a great answer, Kyle. They're usually favored by 6 to 10 points, and they went on that awful streak. I think it was like 1-8-1 the end of the season, and of course they didn't cover against the Chiefs or against the Cleveland Browns. But they seem to win this matchup 4 out of the last 5 times. The Chiefs have beaten the Ravens in the last 2 games, which were the Mahomes ones. They covered. They won both games by 5 or more points. So, that's some interesting stuff there. Here, I'm stuck in the same position as I am every freaking year with this game. And I'll tell you what, my power ratings say the freaking Ravens because it's Chiefs by 1. I got Chiefs by 1, right? And the spread's 3.5. But there's no way I can trust that. And I think the truth is the Ravens defense is not as good as it's been. You see them try to blitz against a young Raiders offensive line, and they couldn't even do that well, even on their blitz and their aggressive defense. With the Marcus Peters injury, you saw what Henry Ruggs did last weekend. These are the big signs that show that the Ravens aren't the Ravens. My problem mostly is Lamar Jackson's just so magical on his feet. He could backdoor this. They could be down by 10, they get a touchdown, and it goes down to 3. That's a little bit of a concern there. And that's just his mantra right there. If they're down, they can backdoor anybody. But the Chiefs have handled Lamar Jackson. They have. So I'm wondering if people get a little overly contrarian again on this one. And I'm going to wait this out because at 3, I might have a play, whether it be personal or premium, on the Chiefs.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The other thing is the Ravens made that mistake last year of just continually blitzing Patrick Mahomes. And if there's somebody you really don't want to blitz, it's Patrick Mahomes because he can pick apart a blitz better than anybody else. And if they try that again this year, where their blitz is not as good as it was last year, I don't think it's going to work very well at all. So we'll see how this matchup goes. But I think all of us, if we had to take something, would take the Chiefs there in that one. Um, so Kiev, I think it's time for our underdog to win outright.
Well,
Is that correct?
Chris actually had another
Did he
quick
have another
play
one? Okay.
with Buffalo versus Miami, so I want Chris to quick take
Right.
the floor on that one.
Sure. Yeah, I really like Miami at home. I'll just get straight to the point with that one. That's going to be another free play at the odds breakers that I put out. I did not like the optics in the Bills press conference after their game. They just seemed a little too down on themselves. And now they have to travel down to Miami. And as probably most of us know by now, a lot of our this audience is just getting sharper and sharper. I mean, the Dolphins were the best covering team in the NFL last year, 11-5 straight up, 7-1 at home. I'm just continually impressed by what that team can do on defense. Right? It's like the definition of a bend don't break defense. I mean, Mac Jones and that Patriots offense went up and down the field. They just couldn't convert that into points. And then Tua throws that really errant pass, that bad interception. But at least he answered, right? They came back. They were down, way down on their own end of the field. They responded. They got some first downs, and they closed out the game. I mean, this is not the same kind of Dolphins, team of the past where we can just expect them to blow games at the end. I think it's quite the opposite. And I can see the Bills really struggling again against that Miami secondary, Miami defense. They're feisty. They play hard for their coach. I have to take the Dolphins with the hook, plus 3.5 at home. Hope that stays that way. If it goes down, I might try to middle that. But because I can see the same thing happening, just like in the Ravens and the Chiefs game, right? The Bills with needing to respond. I can see them getting a late cover there or something, but I'm going to have to take the Dolphins, and it's probably going to be a circa pick for me because with the hook at home, it's just too good not to take.
Geez, Chris, I'm afraid we're going to have all the same circa picks this week, my man. But no, great call on that. We only have 2 minutes left, so I agree 100%. And my free play was the Purdue for sure on that one. And I think Kyle, you were saying, are we into the dog session?
The dog to win outright. So I'll say my free pick here real quick is Cincinnati against Indiana. I like Cincinnati. They got a great shot here to try to make a statement on national TV. I think they can really get after Michael Penix in this game. I think Cincinnati defense will be a problem there. So I'll lay the 3.5 points with Cincinnati for my free pick. Kiev, what underdog of 3.5 points or more do you like to win outright?
I like BYU at plus 3.5. Sorry, I'm going so low this week, but people bought Arizona State because of the big letdown spot for BYU. But this is a night game again. I mean, BYU is going to be electric again, and they want to make a statement against the Pac-12. I think they could win this one outright. It's just a 3.5 point spread, so you're probably getting plus 160, plus 150 ish, whatever, depends upon your book. But I'm going to go with BYU for the most likely dog to win outright. And man, Indiana's going to be everyone's whipping boy this year, Kyle, because of how good they were last year. It's kind of interesting to see. I agree with your Cincinnati.
Yeah, Chris, do you have anything as far as a underdog that might win outright either in college or the NFL?
Florida against Alabama. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not taking that. I guess it would either have to be the Dolphins, and I'm gonna, I gave it away on my podcast earlier this week. I'm gonna do a tiny sprinkle on the Falcons.
That's a tough one there.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. But the Falcons, in the past, the Falcons have shown that they can hang in these divisional matchups. Do I think it's actually going to happen? No. But is it worth a sprinkle? I mean, no one's talking about it, and I think it could be possible. But at plus 12.5, I really like them too.
That's fair. That's fair. And Chris likes Miami too, and they are plus 3.5, so that one would qualify as well. So a couple there from the NFL for him. Kiev, I'm going to go a little bit bigger for the underdog this week, and this one is fairly bold as well. I'm going to take Utah State against Air Force. I think Air Force coming off that Navy win. I like Air Force. I always like to root for the military teams, but I think this is a bad spot for them. Lafayette and then Navy, they haven't played an offense yet, really. Now they take on Utah State. Blake Anderson's a good coach. Utah State much improved. I think Utah State certainly has a better shot than their odds would suggest. So I'll take Utah State for an underdog that can win outright this week. Chris, let everybody know where they can follow your work.
Sure. At Farley Bets on Instagram and Twitter. Of course, a writer at the Odds Breakers all the time. Going to get out a cleaner podcast here very shortly. And just at Farley Bets, wherever you can find me.
Kiev?
Appreciate that.
Oh, Chris, can you hear Kiev?
I can't hear Kiev now.
I think Kiev's. We can't hear Kiev here right at the end, but. All right. So check out theoddsbreakers.com for Kiev's work. Work from Chris, Nick, Patrick, a lot of great writers over there. Check out huntersportsfix.com for my plays. Coming off that 8-0 Saturday last week, that's a lofty. I don't know that I can follow that up, but we're going to do our best, right? So quite a few plays again, a lot of totals as you'll usually get from me. Check out Chris's work at the Odds Breakers, his podcast. Laying the Points, is that what it's called?
Yep, laying the points with Farley Bets. Yes, sir.
Okay, Laying the Points. Check it out. And tune back in for the Better Odds sports betting next week again. And we appreciate everybody tuning in today. Have a great weekend, everybody.